Who has contacted this $5 bill?
Oh. Welcome to another episode of Shit Show.
We had a nice dinner together.
Cute dinner date.
Cute little
Matt's
dinner
drunk
date
and he's having
at Lola's.
he's having a sugar crash right now. Matt's
I just want to go home and watch episode 3 of the latest season of Fargo. That's all that matters to me.
Matt's deep into a glass of whiskey, had a big piece of chocolate cake, French fries, bread.
I really toured different culinary regions. I had burrata with artichoke from Italy. I had like a salsa verde soup with roasted cauliflower, and then some curry fries from Amsterdam falafel and kebab. It was delicious.
You can tell by the booze that it is indeed
The more
Friday night.
The more buzzed I get, the closer I get to the microphone. I'm just like, hey, what are we talking about?
If these episodes are, we will go back to our regularly scheduled programming here before too long. But you know what? It's our podcast, and
if we want to do it on Friday nights,
drunk, we'll do it on Friday.
Waiting
nights.
for the storm,
Drunk.
like
it actually is pretty.
They keep pushing it off. They canceled some big event down in like the riverfront in Council Bluffs because of these storms that were supposed to come in, and this still hasn't happened. It's going to be dark out, and they were going to go. We could have done the event.
Banana.
Banana.
What are we talking about?
I don't know.
It had been a golden afternoon, and I remember having the familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the summer.
You know, if you wanted to hear music back then, it was filtered through the radio
All you had to do
stations.
was infiltrate. Well,
Filtered
and
through
if you couldn't
television.
infiltrate that,
Right.
no chance.
No chance. Yeah, I mean, maybe you could try to get at a small radio station in a smaller city and hope that it catches on and then spreads.
Yeah.
So you know, everybody's attention was focused on, you know, and if I'm overlooking anything, my apologies, but I'm just thinking about what I would always see back then, which is radio play, and then somebody's on the Ed Sullivan show or on a, you know, this talk show or this variety show.
Listening to the Born Standing Up.
Yeah.
He talks about like he was on Carson 16 times, but it was guest host. Like,
Right.
He was like the guest host comedian.
Yeah.
And then Carson's like, all right, I want you to come on to a main show. And he went on and he was doing his act, and it cut to like a clip of Carson just dying. And then all of a sudden he's a household name.
Yep.
And, you know, within 2 months he's selling out arenas.
Yep.
Then within 2 more months he's the hottest comedian in the world, and he's selling more tickets than any comedian in the history of the art form has done. And it was just like that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. If you were on Carson, especially as a stand-up comedian,
And you got that, like, yeah.
and especially if you
You got the
invited
nod.
back,
Yeah.
which Seinfeld always tells that story about how he came back, I think 3 times.
It was a kingmaker.
Yeah, and it was just like through the stratosphere. He got his deal with NBC, all that stuff. So to wrap up the point for me was,
Well, and that was because everybody
was focused on
Everybody watched Carson.
That's right.
What else are you going to watch?
That's it. 10:30. Everybody
You're
watched
watching
Johnny.
Carson, or you're not watching TV.
Right. So the question is: have these massive cultural shifts, especially in popular culture, music, art movements, whatever, have they sort of appeared to dissipate because our attention's divided across so many different areas, because the internet lets us access everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah.
You literally can, when I was a kid, we either had to listen to the radio with the tape in the cassette player and record the song so we could listen to it when we wanted to, because we didn't, as a kid, you couldn't easily just like take your money to the store and go buy this stuff. I mean, you could, but you had to have your parents take you. It wasn't just down the street for me. You had to 10 miles into town. Or we would watch MTV and you had to wait until it came on.
Yeah.
You had to wait for the video to show up. And then when it did, you watched it. And
you're pumped.
You're just
it means everything, because that's all you got.
You have a VHS ready so you could record
if you
the video.
If you got to go to the bathroom,
Yeah.
you better hit it during commercial quick, because...
and now it's on demand. You can, and again, so
Do you think
does
there's
that mean that for some reason the shifts are smaller because they're in all these subcultures and subsets of music and art and all that
and
stuff.
are they maybe they're happening in all these like micro fractures, but then over time that builds up and everything just opens up at once? Maybe that's, you talk about these like changing, like you said, everything looks like 2009. I would argue everything digital, at least, looked a lot shittier in 2009.
Sure.
People just didn't have a comprehension of making things or doing things with, So we've learned. It's taken us 15 years to learn.
Yeah.
And now the fluency is higher.
Right. Well,
so is there about to be a spree of interesting stuff that comes out of that because the fluency is so much higher and suddenly you can work at the speed of thought? You're not working at fluency. I'm not going to argue though that like there's consumer culture and things like that have had an influence. Algorithm driven content optimization and things like that have had an influence. Like, I think that's a given. And do you have all like everybody's in their own little bubble taking in their influence, but maybe because everybody's in their bubble, it just takes time for these things to start to, like, you had 5 sources and the whole world was watching those 5 sources.
Yeah.
And then that melded together into something new so much better because you almost had like less experimenting that could happen.
Right.
So it was just like, okay, what's next? And that comes together. All the clay from all these like broken pieces comes together to form this new thing. And now, you have all of these little bits and pieces. And maybe a couple of globs over here come together and a couple over here. And it's just slower to build.
And then another aspect of that, I think, is because of the access to it all the time and the information that's out there, analyzing and breaking down the different artistic forms. I think about when I was in the thick of screenwriting, there's a book called Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. And it was great because he looked at all these movies from the past, especially more quote unquote commercial movies. And he was able to sort of find these common ingredients, these common elements, a formula, if you will. This happens generally around the 8-minute mark, and generally this happens around the 25 to 30-minute mark, and breaking down these things that were
page 18,
that were sort of predictable, and some of these movies were really very successful, critically received movies, and maybe the author wasn't super conscious of hitting all these perfect story beats, but that book, caught a lot of attention in the screenwriting world. And I think a lot of screenwriters started writing to that formula. And so it could contribute to the sameness of everything because we're all in on the formula because of the access to that information. And
you also have the introduction of capital to so many fields.
Sure.
There's always been capital. Like there's always been.
But
God, it's crazy to think like the Beatles were I hate to just stay on that, but I mean, like some of that later stuff was just not. I guess even that though, to an extent, like but it's chicken and egg. But like you had the flower power movement and like the hippie movement and things like that. But yeah, some of that stuff was just crazy to think that they still had the level of success that they had. Because I mean, today it's like the point I was making off of Save the Cat is we talked about this, in the last episode, like all studios want to do is it's finance. It's how can I model this?
Yeah, it's as little risk as possible.
Yeah. Okay. You see that number in cell, 476. This needs to be lower than this number here.
Right. But even with us as people trying to make work, us shooting street photography or landscapes or whatever we're shooting, us writing a screenplay, us making a YouTube video, how much does our ability to so easily consume it all especially its structures and its look, its tone, its vibe, the things we're seeing over and over, and that to permeate our subconscious. But then also the people that have actually like broken down stuff that was successful or stuff that was impactful or stuff that really moved people, to analyze what all of its ingredients and elements are, especially against other things like it, to sort of come up with this formula. And again, not that we're all consciously applying a formula to our work, but even on a subconscious level, are we more creating derivative works or imitating other people than taking, sort of the Quentin Tarantino example, a little bit of this Korean action movie, a little bit of this old Western.
Are you saying
and
almost like
reformulating
having
it.
access to a library book and a video and 6 video essays is almost worse than only having access to 3 films and no guidance?
So this is the last point that I'll make. How has all of this stuff killed boredom?
Yeah.
And the ability for us to access information, to watch stuff, to be jacked in. What role has that played in giving us all these leaping off or starting off points that we have a baseline?
It's like an illusion of understanding too, because it's like you're really not like if you watch something that's like, this was the point of this movie, or something, it can be really well made. But I don't think any director or any writer or any painter or any artist worth acclaim is making things with like, this is the point I'm trying to make.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that stuff breaks through, but most of the time it just feels flat.
Yeah.
So, if you're watching something, it is the illusion of understanding in a lot of senses. Like you're watching a video and it's like, this is the point of this, and this is why the director did this or why the writer did this. And it's like, then you leave it and you're like, oh, I get it.
I'm going to apply that.
It's like, really, you don't have a higher level of understanding than if you were to just watch the film a couple of times and thought about it critically. Yeah. But you have this illusion that you understand it better.
Right.
And then you go and you make some derivative of that illusion.
Right.
And it's just completely detached from anything. You'd have been better off just watch the movie 2 times and write down 10 things that you felt.
Well, you start to see a recipe, and you start to just make things based on a recipe versus having a combination of talent and just sort of like a real primitive understanding of just storytelling in general, based on everything you've watched, everything you've read, all the stories that you've consumed in your whole life. And again, you're going to, I remember that scene in whatever, and like mine's kind of like that, but it's different because the character and the specifics of what you've built are going to make it different, but it's evocative of that thing versus a facsimile of it. So how do we really challenge ourselves with everything that we have at our disposal? The 2 hours I might spend at night watching the critical drinker talk about falling down, and me letting that permeate into something I write because I'm replicating it versus creating something new from my perspective, but drawing on that as influence or inspiration. And what role does boredom, being bored, play in innovating in music, in the written stories, YouTube videos, whatever it is you're making?
Now, define what you mean when you say boredom, because I think of more of like I think boredom is important, but it feels like that's like a bit, because in my head I'm like almost ambiguity, like lack of specificity when you're approaching these things, and you're like you said, it's not a exact replica, or the idea of an exact replica. It is just, you're taking this thing, you're filtering it through your perspective, and then you're spitting it back out.
Yeah.
And rather than well, I saw it, I watched a video on it, and then
not that this happened, but like I had thoughts of Jackson Pollock, and not saying that boredom helped him find
he's a CIA psyop, bro,
his style of painting. But what if you're just in the studio and you're like, I'm fucking bored.
Yeah.
What's that look like? I don't know. I just felt like I just got bored and had an impulse.
Threw some paint on there.
Threw some paint. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Off you go.
Yeah.
And a whole movement, you know, like think of these artistic movements from.
I do think it's funny watching anything pre-internet, and you can kind of see people doing this thing, which I would love to do, where it's just like, man, there's nothing else going on. Feels like it's been 8 hours. It's been 1.
Yeah.
Because time moves slower when
Right.
you're not plugged in, and then you're just like, fuck it, I'm gonna read that book.
Yeah.
Fuck it, I'm gonna write.
Right. What
You
can I
just
do to
sit,
kickstart something?
Yeah, you just sit down and
An
start
experience.
because it like, I mean, if you were to go off the grid for a little bit and have no electricity,
Yeah.
and so I say no electricity because like that eliminates movies, that eliminates computer,
Right.
a lot of stuff. Like, eventually you're just gonna be like, all right, fuck, what's that book about? Like, you're just gonna jump into it, or you're gonna be like, I guess I could write something right now.
Yeah.
And it almost, like, boredom, I hate to like pull this into the war of art thing, but it's like boredom is almost a really good counterpoint to resistance.
Yeah.
Like, if you're just bored, I feel like people are more afraid of being bored than of the resistance to starting something. But
There's something
like, there's not a lot of things that are, that I would rank above that, like, resistance to starting something.
Yeah.
It's a pretty powerful force.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. But I think boredom might be more powerful. So it's like just being bored and being like, oh, fuck, let's see what this is about.
Because there's something in boredom that is, I don't want to be bored. Where there's something in resistance, which is
Boredom is like,
I don't want to do this work.
yeah, boredom is like scary. Like, in a way, like, boredom is like, I'm bored and I have to spend complete time with myself,
Yeah.
which, that's not terrible. But if you've been plugged in constantly for years, it's going to feel pretty terrible.
Yeah.
You're going to be going through one, screen withdrawals, like real, actual dopamine withdrawals.
Yes.
And you're not gonna, it's not gonna feel good. And then also just like, I like noise. I even have like the CRT. I just leave it on the screensaver most of the time because I like the noise that just buzzing.
Yeah. Yep. I do too.
And I don't like silence.
Yep.
Silence is terrifying. Like, I rather.
Well, I'll give you an example of boredom that I've experienced as a dad. I have had both my kids home for 3 days this week, and they're together, and they'll come down and they'll be like, "Dad, we're bored," and I'm like, "We're not turning on the TV." They don't have phones and iPads that they have access to. They certainly get their share of screen time on the television, watching shows together during breakfast or whatever their little schedule is. But they'll come down, they'll say they're bored, and then I'll hear them upstairs. Within 10 minutes, some big new thing is going on. They've got the whole room tore apart. They're building something. They're playing with their Barbies or whatever they're playing with. And they've created a whole world. They're using their imagination. They've unboarded themselves.
Yeah.
And I really love it because I know what's going to happen because it happens to me.
Yeah. It's a good lesson,
I
too.
get myself out of feeling bored sometimes. And I'll be like,
it's just so
you know
easy
what?
for
I could
us.
use a shelf I could use a little shelf right there for my cameras. And I go out in the garage and I build a shelf.
Yeah.
I did that little camera shelf in my studio. Obviously a shelf isn't a super complex thing, but most people buy 2 brackets and a piece of wood, right? I'm like, well, how could I make this just out of wood? And, I cut the little triangle pieces and I screwed them in. Well, it's going to bow in the middle. I better reinforce it. You're also doing a little bit of problem solving. It's just like incredibly stimulating. Then you get to stand back and go, I made this thing.
Yeah.
It's a little shitty,
Yeah.
but it works.
I spent a whole
painted
day
it.
making these
Spent a whole
guys.
day. Yeah.
I've been here for
So
years. All of these guys.
So I just think I was listening to, of course, we're of course fully sponsored by Rick Rubin and Tetragrammaton, but I was listening to the Laird Hamilton one, and he's like, you know how we came up with like 3 fin surfboards?
Yeah.
We were bored.
Yeah.
We had 1 fin surfboards. And we're like, what if you put 3 on?
What if we put? Yeah.
And they're not thinking of the physics and how these fins are going to act in the water. They put the 3 on there, and they completely revolutionized surfing.
Yeah.
And he's like, we literally were bored.
Yeah.
And we're like, let's just put more fins on it. Yeah, I mean, seriously, some of this stuff happens because people are like, fuck, I don't know. Let's strap Billy to the skateboard and shove him down the hill. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. Fuck it. Send him.
Yeah. I'm not advocating strapping people to skateboards and sending them down a hill as a means
but
for
maybe
boredom.
we are.
But maybe we are.
No,
maybe it's a metaphor, Alex.
I think
we all need to strap ourselves to the skateboard.
I do think there's something to be said about just not giving in to that immediate, just like, I need some kind of stimulation.
Yeah. Well,
and
here's another thing too, right?
I need to, I'm going to open up YouTube. What's new? What do we have that's new? What, I want to, I just don't feel like doing anything. What new podcast came out?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's just, I'm not saying any of that stuff is bad either, but there's just something to being like, just going to sit here.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's funny though, because there are, I'm like, oh, like, pick up that book, read that book. Well, technically that's giving in to it, right? That's, in a way, it's similar.
I think if you're like,
but you need activity. Like, you can, I think, to use boredom as like an effective tool to, progress at something that you want to progress at, identify what those most important, most valuable tasks are, and then use those as your boredom outlets. Let yourself get bored, and then use those tasks as your way out. And if you don't want to do one of those tasks, then, well, I'm just sitting here then. I guess I'm just going to sit here and watch birds.
And I've used, getting into a book as maybe first instinct is I kind of want to escape my boredom here. Mm-hmm. And if I read this, it's doing something, especially if it's a little more heavy. It's not just like, a romance novel or, a sci-fi pulp.
How long is this book actually?
Like 200 pages.
I read it on the Kindle, so I have no
I know. Yeah. So Dude, I'm like
highlighting the hell out of that thing.
I'm going to start reading this to break out of this.
Yeah.
And this, and that's part of why I do mark up my books. I'm like, especially a good one like this.
Should we do a book club episode on this? This is like the first book that we've both read together.
We probably should.
Pretty.
And I have, I think I want to do a little bit of work just to like.
I don't want to make it too much of like an intellectual exercise.
No, but I just want to make sure that I'm the person that, like, if we were going to talk about a movie or I was going to make a video essay or something, I would need to watch the movie 3-4 times to really process it. Same thing with like a novel or whatever. My first pass at something is very much on the surface. And I don't know that that's like a reading comprehension thing or it's like, I'm like riding an emotional wave versus like the deeper layers of it. So I'm processing it on a different level. And for me to like really get to those deeper layers of the onion, I really do have to read things multiple times. Now, will I read the entire book word for word 2 or 3 times? No, but part of why I highlight it's like the breadcrumbs leading you back to the source. Like,
and it's typically a pretty good retention exercise. Like you can pull it up and the context comes back. And that's what it is. It's just a way for me to put my brain back into what I was experiencing when I read it. Because if it's more a little bit more abstract or it's a big concept that I am not really don't have any kind of map for, and again back to cartography, I know I talk about all the time. Like that first read is like, okay, I know where the water is and I know where the land is. Second read is like, oh, okay, I know the mountains and the thing. Like that's all it is. But it takes me
a lot of passes to really
Yeah,
develop that. To feel like I could sit down and have a really valuable conversation, both valuable for me, valuable for you, and valuable for listeners, to try to call out a book like this and say what I really connected with, what I was struggling with. And actually this conversation about boredom, about the dispersal of our attention across so many different places on the internet, that's all a reaction to everything I've been watching and reading with Mark Fisher and Ghosts of My Life and Capitalist Realism and Hauntology and all that. I want to try to come up with that devil's advocate point of view where it's like, especially because we feel like there's a lot of emotion in these books.
Yeah.
Like personal loss and sort of like I miss the good old days a little bit when a new album came out.
Especially in the Fisher books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So especially as it relates to music. So part of me is just like, well, are there other angles to that argument, or the flip side of that argument that shine a light on other things that are part of that these things are happening, but it's on such a small scale that we just don't see it in mass culture at all.
Yeah.
I was thinking about earlier, and we won't spend a lot of time on this, but I was thinking about that big movement in the culinary arts toward deconstruction and using liquid nitrogen and turning things into, something is tastes like a s'more, but it's literally like a food made out, like a little campfire made out of food.
Playing with texture.
All this crazy stuff that they did that just was like just like from another planet in the culinary world, that was so like staked in tradition, in the French, and you get, fusion cuisine and again, like that kind of, I think I do not remember the source of it, but I feel like a lot of this came out of Scandinavia, playing with liquid nitrogen and really experimenting with the form of presenting food to people. And then this famous restaurant in Chicago, and I hope I'm not butchering the pronunciation. I think it's Alinea, Alinea. It's a really good documentary about it and the chef that started it. But they were like a 3 Michelin star, like best restaurant in the world, like these crazy awards because he was completely reinventing how,
Food,
what you ate,
yeah.
and what, you know what I mean? And this is 2000s, this isn't like, you know what I mean? So like what areas had massive breakthroughs and massive changes, and maybe it just didn't permeate the greater awareness of mass media and mass culture like Nirvana and the grunge movement did, especially because the restaurant stuff wasn't connected to youth culture as much. It was
older,
older. So even what role does that play? I mean, Grant, I think his name is Grant Schatz. I'm so sorry for the people that are restaurant people.
We
that
are not.
Like, this guy, a little too much whiskey, but.
What do they say? The problem about people who read too much is they always butcher the pronunciation.
I know.
So.
We'll clean it up in the show notes.
That's what Matt's just too well read.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of show notes in this one.
Yeah.
Well, I just like
all you, buddy.
Yeah,
no.
Right. So
I do feel like we almost need to do show note purges every once in a while, though.
Yeah.
Because it does feel like some of them fall heavier than others.
Right.
You just need to be like, get all this out here.
Get all this out here.
No, what fields are evolving? Like if you're dialed into one particular field, and then that stops evolving, and you're like, time is standing still, and it's like, not necessarily. Like your subculture may have stopped having something to say, but
or music's just in a dormancy period, but like crazy shit's going on in physics, but we don't hear about it in the mass culture because it's hard to contextualize physics in a way that's like as visceral as Smells Like Teen Spirit. It's just not going to hit everybody like that music did.
Where nothing crazy's going on?
Yeah.
The social science.
Yeah, that's a whole other episode.
It's harder to, experience the lowest hanging fruit of cultural change is pop music.
Right. Popular movies, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, popular movies. I mean, now what is it? Just
I'm sure. I mean, if you try to
internet like memes that last for more than a year.
think-
Like
yeah,
what?
like the
what's,
type of YouTube videos that are out there.
Yeah,
Like Mr. Beast style videos, extreme concept, spectacle based,
Yeah.
stuff.
and again, yeah, it's like unplug from our world and see what, like, there's probably not a lot of crazy stuff happening in. I mean, what are some things that we're plugged into that's not like musical theater?
Yeah.
Musical theater is probably in like a bit of a dormancy
Yeah.
period right now.
Yeah.
Or like theater. I'm sure there's crazy stuff that's being
Right.
done and tried, and like some of the stuff with live theater and film and stuff like that's pretty
Yeah.
exciting.
Well,
Want to see where that goes.
street photography, you could argue that photography has, and
Yeah.
I don't know that like what people are photographing is like
See,
what's
but
in
once
the images.
once we break away from like YouTube, what is street photography? Like, I just got a new Fuji and I took pictures of
yeah.
a person on the street, and that's street photography. Like, once we break away from that, like, there's actually really interesting work to be done in street photography right
Well,
now.
that's-
Because
and
what
that's
do
what
you
I
do
mean.
when you're in a world where, there's only like super, super polarized subcultures in like all of these different places, and, different feelings on privacy, and, what should and shouldn't be allowed in a public place. And, yeah, I think there is interesting work to be done, and it's just some of that has been redirected towards some of that energy that would be used, like, oh, let's just explore this because it's in front of us,
Yeah.
is being used to mimic, like you put out earlier, it's being
Right.
used to mimic stuff that's easy to access.
Right. Well, and another point that I was going to make, some of our fears with artificial intelligence, we were talking about this because we were reading something that you felt had some indications that it could be possible that, ChatGPT was used to maybe write a rough draft of this thing.
Yeah.
And, bear with me while I get through this point, but, some of the fears about ChatGPT, even if we ultimately end up writing the final piece, quote unquote, ourselves, is ChatGPT sort of just like a shortcut to that formulaic rough draft that gives us a starting off point. And while we might enhance it or adjust it, it's not this sort of wholly original work, right? Same thing with...
We're taking language, like the most important building block of our humanity. You could argue language and visual. I mean, and I classify those two things pretty close together. Yeah, we're taking language, and like you might know how to design, a car with the little clicks online, and you're like, I built this car myself. But then you have no idea how the components work.
Right.
Or like you can design a house, but you have no idea what goes into building a house.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing that with language. We're automating the process. We're letting somebody else, some greater power, whether that's a collection of information being run through, like a collection of data sets being run through a bunch of processing power, or, the ability to build living quarters or to, get our own food or things like that.
Right.
We're outsourcing that, and language is way more important than any of those things I just mentioned, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just, that's the danger, right? Is you have this, you're outsourcing the structure of that, like, and you could see that how that could be detrimental over time. When you lose the ability to, like, what if in order to write anything, if you need to go to ChatGPT, or you could be like, I can write it, but really you're just mimicking the language model.
Right.
There's no understanding of what's going into like a sentence or like syntax.
Yeah, and then the concern too is the more people use language learning models to write a rough draft, even whether it's a legal brief or an original article for Good Housekeeping, is there it's a way to shortcut to the reward.
Yeah.
It's a way to get the heavy lifting done, and is it ultimately going to kind of create sort of like a similarity, a similarness between all these different written forms? So the other example is we have been doing that, right? We consume all these movies, we listen to music, we find the formula, we build our own language learning model in a sense, creating languages for the form of a movie, the form of a street photo, the form of this, whether it's on a conscious or subconscious level. And it's easier for us to create a facsimile of the things that we've seen before than to try to make something that isn't that it comes from a truer place. Again, you're always going to be influenced. You're going to have stuff that you draw on, but you're not like looking at it and going, oh, okay, so in Act 2 they did this. Okay, so when I write my Act 2, I need to do this. I'm going to change this. Okay, yes. Okay, that is essentially performing the same function that I see here over here, but this is soulless. This has nothing to it.
Yeah.
It is vapid and untruthful and impure. And I see a lot of similarities there. Like,
Yeah.
I want to get that rough draft. Like, hey, ChatGPT, I need you to write me 5 talking points for a review for AirPods Max headphones from the point of view of a video editor.
And see,
okay,
some
got
of
it.
that stuff, it's like, hey, I need you to write me a quick letter to so and so. It's like, it seems like it's not that important.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that just makes that so much easier. And in some things, I would probably agree. It's not that important. But there's just like, what scares me is I don't know where to draw the line of like, it's like, oh, I need to write a letter to my neighbor. And so why not just, I could spend 30 minutes writing a letter, or I could just do it in 5 minutes, ChatGPT, and send it off. It's like, you could argue it's not that important. It's just a quick letter, but it's like, maybe sitting down, writing a letter to your neighbor is like the most important thing you could spend 30 minutes doing.
Yep.
Sharing like who you are as a human with the person that's
right.
sharing a, locational proximity to you.
Or the shortcuts I took back in the day, we got assigned measure for measure in Shakespeare class. And I'm like, I'm not reading this thing. I'm just going to get the Cliff Notes and go through that, and I'll get the gist of it. But like, yeah, you understand on a surface level the plot of it, and maybe they talk about some stuff from a more literary analysis point of view as well as Cliff Notes can, but you're missing out on the entire experience of reading it, the emotional ebb and flow, your own interpretation of it, looking up what that word means.
What's really funny,
of that.
What really set that point home was I was reading Moby Dick. The Cliff Notes for Moby Dick are about as far away from the book as possible.
Right, yeah.
It's like a very
that's what I mean,
plot-centric,
right? Yeah.
like this, and this. And it's like, you're not reading that book for the plot.
Yeah.
No, like, look at
You're
how
reading
he plays with language. Look at how creative
the
and how just,
subtext,
absolutely nuts some of his metaphors are. Look at how effective he is at building these scenescapes with nothing but, language. and just language.
What does the rhythm of the writing do to you emotionally while you read it?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
like just the way the words are put together. I mean, Shakespeare was written in iambic pentameter. Guess what isn't written in iambic pentameter? The Cliff Notes on Measure for Measure. They are
You're
not.
kidding. No. Now with ChatGPT,
they can write me Cliff Notes, but in iambic pentameter.
Please. Yeah.
So
yeah, and it's just like these little things where it's like, oh, this isn't that important. It's like, maybe that is important.
Yeah.
And I'm not like saying it is important. You need to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I would necessarily prescribe skipping that.
No, I know. Yeah. So I just.
And I use Chat. I mean,
yeah.
I don't use ChatGPT, but I use language models and like.
Sure.
I've been playing around with them for 2 years now, like more than most people, I feel like. And I get a lot of enjoyment. I think they're great tools for learning.
100%.
They're great for sourcing information, but yeah, it's like,
I think you have to know yourself. You have to have that self-awareness to go like, am I using this to kind of cheat? I'm just going to have it write a cover letter for me.
Yeah.
I don't want to write a cover letter.
Yeah.
well, what does that say about how
Well,
badly
and
you want
see,
the job?
Some
or,
things
you
like
know,
that
like-
though. It's like I don't know. This is interesting because I almost can see it as like a form of protest in situations like that. Like, I think
Yeah.
cover letters for mass applications
Or
are
bullshit.
stupid.
Yep. Absolutely.
I think most people that are hired to do that are, they're underpaid and they're probably not loving what they
Yeah.
do. And, you're going to spend an hour and a half of your time stressing over a cover letter, and some fucking uninterested person is going to look at it for a quarter of a second and disregard it and then move on to something else. And you've wasted an hour. So it's like,
So you're saying I'm going to use this soulless thing
yeah, like
to for a soulless
counteract
end.
this soulless process.
100%.
Exactly. And so I'm
Absolutely.
like, that's fun.
And to me,
Like, fuck your process. I disagree with this. And now I have a tool.
Agreed.
I'll play your game.
Yep.
But I'm not going to fucking play your
you
game.
don't care. I'm not going to care.
Yeah. 100%.
Totally agree. And I think what we're,
But then watch that too, because that's slippery slope,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
You start saying, well, you don't care. I don't care. Movie studios start saying, well, if the audience doesn't care, we don't care.
Yep. Well, and then like, what is, this has your name on it, like what if there's one person there that reads it and they do have the soul, but it's for this other thing that
Yeah.
they're trying to do. And this is their day job, blah, blah, blah. They see that you did the ChatGPT cover letter and it brands you in a sense
Yep.
with
This is
with
the guy
something,
that just uses ChatGPT. This is the girl
Like,
that uses ChatGPT. Yeah.
And what does that say about someone? And again, not making any judgment, but what does it say about someone that in the face of a soulless thing tries to give it soul?
Yeah.
Or calls it out with soul in some way.
There's a way to be like, I'm writing this in protest.
Right. Yeah.
ChatGPT, give
Yeah.
me a cover letter, but the first letter of every sentence spells out, I'm writing this in protest.
But the cover letter is all about how if you get hired at that business, you're going to overhaul everything, starting from, you work your
cover
way
letters.
up from the mail room all the way up to the executive suite. You're going to overhaul that business.
First thing I'm outlawing, cover letters.
Right.
No.
Because you're going
And
to.
look, I'm not like anti, like I get the purpose of a cover letter.
Sure.
The thing I'm saying that is stupid about cover letters is people expect you to give your time and passion and pour into that cover letter, and they don't give it the same respect.
Yeah, no.
And that's annoying.
Yep.
I remember writing essays in college, and you could tell, like, if there was a professor who gave a shit.
Yeah.
And I would walk to the end of the earth for that man.
That's right.
As long as I could do it in 3 hours the day it was due.
Yeah, that's right.
But no, like I always approached it with like a higher intellectual frequency.
Yes.
Then if some of them were just like, they're just going to check the page count.
That's right.
And they're going to read the first 2 sentences.
Yep.
And if it fits the page count and the first 2 sentences aren't nonsense, you could even put little Easter eggs in there and they wouldn't
Right.
find them ever.
Yep.
And it's like, so if that's the effort you're going to give it, then why am I
Yeah.
going to sit here and give you effort?
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm more flailing about against. And,
Sure.
for that kind of stuff, use ChatGPT,
Yeah.
but hopefully maybe it just makes everybody dial in a little bit more.
Yeah.
With all the teachers. But see, it's everybody's lazy. I think not everybody's lazy. That's
Walk it back.
I think
We have a capacity for
people's
laziness.
people tend to laziness. I tend to laziness.
I do too.
It's just
Or shortcuts.
what is the quickest way for me to get from point A to point B? And when you have a technology that's right there, that's like, yeah, this is pretty fucking easy.
Yep.
I think a lot of people are going to choose that over
Absolutely.
just putting in the work. Why? Because it gets into, again, using seeing things through this lens of data and efficiency.
Well,
if that's the only lens, then what's
Yeah.
the point in just doing something because of
Right.
doing it? It's really hard to find that point. So that's the danger of.
And that's the concern, is that the tools and the demands on us and all of that stuff lead us to go, that residential building looks great. It's got the thing, the look, that tested well in focus group. Just send it. Just get it over with. Or
We've got 4 months to have
Yeah.
this done.
yeah,
Just get it.
just whatever. Like, and then again, how is all of that are the seduction of laziness or the shortcut or the easy way? How does that lead us to everything being the fucking same.
Yeah.
Everything just being.
Because all
God,
you have
that
to do
picture
is
of those cars.
reach like. I mean, it sucks, but yeah, all you have to do is reach the tipping point of like 51%.
Yeah. All this has worked in the past. So, all these things, whether it's a building, a car design, whatever, all that's worked in the
I get
past.
excited when I hear people like rebelling and, people talking about how the internet sucks and stuff like that. Because I'm like, like maybe there is just something that kind of, just kind of guides people. And it's like, this is trash. This is unacceptable.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to, if we're going to complain about the market being, this people-driven entity and that gets manipulated, like hopefully there is a little mechanism, a correction mechanism in there that's like, hey, this sucks.
Yeah.
This is not meeting my expectations.
Right.
And, I've had more conversations than I ever have about people who are like, yeah, Google sucks. Like the internet sucks.
Yeah.
YouTube, honestly, dude, YouTube kind of sucks.
Yeah.
It kind of stinks. It's hard to find stuff on YouTube, other than like unless it's a new video or there's like I was looking for something yesterday and like, and even on Google, like the article I sent you, the article about Kid A,
yeah,
that was archived,
yes,
because the website went dead a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And I mean it was hard to find.
Yeah, you had to go to.
And like, yeah, like I understand going to, the way back and doing
Wayback
that
Machine,
is its own thing, but it was very difficult just to find index in regular Google. Like even if it's a dead site, it should be
right.
easy to find, but you search it and it's like Rolling Stone article. Da, 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 da.
Oh yeah, just
all
a bunch
of this
junk
bullshit that got published in like the last 2 years, and I was typing in like very specific, like.
Well, and that's where you want.
I'm like, Google, you're a search index. You're not a
curate my results. Don't promote results.
Yeah, like,
and that's
just do your job.
But we want to promote stuff because we have to make money. We moved from our core mission to help you find what you're looking for right away to promoting a bunch of bullshit from whatever companies pay up, including our subsidiaries. And
it was just frustrating. And like but yeah, what gives me hope is that people are kind of complaining and like, this sucks.
That's what I mean. Like,
I hate this. I don't like this. This is trash.
And that's what I mean. Like when I I try to look at this stuff in the macro sense to try to feel like, is there like, what's the temperature of the room right now? And I feel like, and again, it could be sort of my couple quadrants of YouTube, of the many, many quadrants that YouTube has. And I'm talking like types of videos, genres, big site, cultural,
big website. Yeah.
But in my area, are there enough people that are going like, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of the analytics. I'm sick of being like herded into making like retention editing. That's been in my world, the zeitgeist in my world is everybody rejecting retention editing now because they all thought they had to have 47 cuts in the first 8 seconds of their video just to like get people to stay tuned in.
Well, now nobody actually knows how to cut a movie anymore.
Yeah.
I face this at work all the time. It's like there are basic principles that literally developed from the first film from the silent era of like how we cut stories so they can be visually comprehended.
Right.
And once you understand those, you can start to play with the form a little bit.
Right.
But retention editing came around and you had people that learned that and they're like, well, this is just a style and this is my style. It's like, no. There's like, like you can't just be like, you can't just learn some words and letters and start spewing words and letters randomly onto paper and be like, can you read this? And it's like, there's no structure there.
Right.
It's like, no, but this is my style. This is how I write. This is my style. It's like, no. You have to understand, like, you have to write in sentences still.
Well, and a problem with
you have to learn basic grammar.
The problem with retention editing is they could point to a piece of YouTube analytics and say, "But it's working.
It works.
It's working. So I'm right."
Exactly.
But then what's always the counter to that? Yes, you're getting short-term results, but what's the ultimate cost of
the
this?
long-term?
What's the long-term?
Yeah.
And I think hopefully too, we're seeing, a shift in those areas of thinking of that. Everything comes back to Jurassic Park. You're so preoccupied with it, you could stop to think if you should. Thinking about what the cost of something is, and again, those short-term games, and that's what YouTube Analytics is for. It is, today, I published a video on my photography channel, and for a couple hours, it was a 1 out of 10. You get that little woo, yay, people are watching, whatever, and it'll sink its claws into you and make you just start trying to chase that dopamine hit and try to get those A+ on your report card every single time you put something out there.
Yeah.
I released another video on my main channel, and I'm like, my audience this is not the video that's for them. A video about how to get take high quality footage from modern cameras, but make it look like older footage from a camcorder. And, but I sit there and I go, if I made a video to chase these short-term results, it wouldn't be a video I really liked. And with this video, I know that ultimately it's going to get picked up in the search results, and people are going to be looking for how to do this and follow the tutorial and all that, and it'll get the views long term. And again, not that that's my primary motivation. My primary motivation is I've got something to say about this. I think this is cool that you can do this with modern footage and make it look like shit from a camcorder.
Yeah, you really zagged on it, which was good.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is the video I want to make.
Is there
that's
anything
all I care about?
Like, and we can wrap up pretty soon, but
Yeah.
is there anything that you can think of where, now that you've had some time from it, and I'm talking like 5-10 years, that where you made a decision based on short-term results, and now you can see, I mean, the obvious one, and this is one that comes to my head, is like, up until like 2 years ago, dude, I couldn't navigate for shit. Like, I just didn't have a good
like in the world
spatial awareness of
sure.
like where I am, and for this street or this street.
Yes,
I was just so reliant on GPS. I don't really use GPS that much anymore. Like, if I'm going somewhere across town I've never been, and I've got to be there, and I've got 25 minutes, and it's 24 minutes away, I'm gonna use GPS.
Yeah.
I want to know what exit to get off.
Absolutely.
But most of the time I don't use it. And I mean, using a flip phone helps with that.
Right.
Kind of forces you to do that. But I mean, that like, and even a couple of years ago, like, it was hard for me to sit down and read. I've always read a lot. Like, I read all the time as a kid.
Sure.
And then, I read a lot during college and things like that. But, especially like COVID, like, kind of a year where I was just more watching videos and stuff and that was kind of right before I hit that peak where I was just like, fuck this.
Yeah.
And that's when I deleted all my social media and just like became a absolute Luddite again. But it was just hard for me to like read stuff, like get into, part of that is, just like ADHD and being able to sit down and just like calm the monkey mind for a little bit.
Sure.
But part of it, I think, was just, I'd started consuming all of this short-term content and like lost the ability temporarily to process. And it happened quick.
Yeah.
We were talking like 6 months.
Sure.
And it just rewires it. And you're like, okay. Then you have to spend like 6 more months regaining the ability to do something that you were able to do for your entire life.
Well, I mean, the phone and the internet does something, especially when you have something out there that has something at stake. And I don't know if this coincides with you having content on your channel or, again, not like in a big way, but, having posted something to Instagram or whatever, for me, I am so locked into making
locked in, baby, locked into those spreadsheets,
locked into making progress toward what I'm trying to achieve, whether it's increased revenue, providing for my family, the illusion of financial security, all of that crap. That stuff hooks into me.
Yeah.
And the internet and my phone is a way for me to check on, is the needle moving closer to that thing or not? And so sometimes, the rare things that have a commercial break, like a football game or a Hulu show or whatever, let me check my phone and see what my status
check
is.
My stocks. Let me check. Check my YouTube subscribers.
I mean, sometimes it's just like what new articles have been posted in my news feed, so that if there's some that are related to my world, I can get more info and have a better understanding of how things are moving, progressing. Is there anything I need to pay attention to?
Man, I got to see this because then maybe I can do something with it before somebody else can. Like, is there that?
It's not like.
Is it like
sometimes it's more like just trying to read the room, like what's going on in culture right now. That especially that overlaps with what I'm doing. It's not like what breaking news happened with Final Cut that I need to go report on. I mean, there's some of that, but it's It's a little bit more just like continuing to kind of take the temperature of things. And I found when I don't have any trouble sitting down to read. I read this book in 2 days.
Yeah.
Because part of it was inspiring. It was putting into words all the thoughts and feelings that I've been having for a couple of years now. But then I'm trying to really go to my lives, and I'm like, okay, like I am struggling with the music element. I love music, all that stuff, but it's so music centric, and the points that it's making that I don't have a connection.
It's a little
to
bit
it.
more obscure. Yeah.
It's just his lens through which to communicate the effects of capitalist realism and all the stuff that Mark, was impacted by. I don't latch on to that lens.
Yeah. I got to say though, I have enjoyed
else.
almost having somebody like, hey, check this out.
Yeah.
Like, this is so important to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that's that important to you?
And see, I'm a little bit more
like that's cool. I want to check that out too. Like, if that's that important to you,
Yeah.
like, I think I could at least.
And I experienced that for some reason with this book. It's honestly annoying me a little bit.
Really?
Now,
Yeah,
don't get
yeah.
me wrong. I listened to Joy Division.
Yeah.
I didn't look up Japan, the artist, and there's certainly stuff in this book. I wrote down book titles and ordered a couple of them. It does happen. I think there's something that's happening. Not to spend too much time on this, but with Ghost of My Lives, that I thought that book was going to be about something
Different
else.
expectation to reality.
And it doesn't mean that I'm not able to like.
Damn, this goes back like 3 episodes
Yeah.
ago.
And it doesn't mean that I'm like, because this isn't meeting my expectations, I don't think it's good.
Yeah.
I'm aware of the fact that it's not meeting my expectations, and I'm trying to take it at face value. And again, the lens through which he is exploring this, it's just not interesting to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't hook me.
Yeah.
And so I'm avoiding reading it.
Yeah.
Whereas this, I couldn't wait to read another page.
Yeah.
And I wanted to like not make dinner so I could keep reading
Yeah.
this, and part of that is I'm just intellectually stimulated. It is connecting neurons that
Right book at the right time. Yeah.
But then it's also so inspiring that I'm like, well, how does this filter into the work? How do we talk
Yeah.
about this in the podcast? What kind of video? How does this inform my work?
Well, no, I'm in the same.
all
I
of
mean,
that.
I've literally finished 2 other books since starting
We're
Ghost of
down.
My Life.
Just a heads up.
We gotta go.
Yeah, Alex's angle's done, so we're over an hour and a half.
Yeah, I mean, I've
Yeah.
knocked out 2 other ones that have been more interesting.
And I did get
And
your
it's
other
tough.
book, the Soul one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I haven't started that one yet,
Yeah.
so I will.
Yep.
We'll have to report back on
that'll
that
be
one.
another book club episode, maybe.
But yeah, real quick, just to tie that point off, we got to figure out how to fix this camera next
Yep.
week. We'll do that.
I have a backup one too, so
We might have to swap it. The battery's a little funky too.
yeah.
But yeah, are there any other things that come to mind for you where it's like you had that, you took a shortcut and it's had more of a relatively long-term effect than you anticipated? Or maybe it was something that happened, or you're like, no, absolutely not.
When you think of
Everything's good.
shortcut too, do you mean just like anything, or
Like-
do you just
like,
mean like
I
the
think
cover
of-
letter thing, or do you mean like work, like
Yeah,
work that I?
like cover letter work. Like, is there?
I think
a
my
thing-
whole screenwriting
career is a
career
shortcut?
was it was a weird half and
Is that
half.
career over? Are we gonna see
I
like
don't think so.
Are you and I gonna like
Well,
like
yeah, I know.
push
like,
each other to
there
like
could be
some new
something
break?
there.
Yeah.
I am still working with my buddy Micah on one script that he's working on right now. Now I'm not writing any words,
Yeah.
but there's kind of like I'm trying to like approach it a little bit more like Rick Rubin approaches producing music.
You're just like, yeah, that's pretty good. Oh, that's a cool idea. Yeah.
And it's more than that too. It's like
Do you have any skills? No. Do you play any instruments? No. What do you do?
right.
I have really high levels of trust in my taste.
There's something that I feel like really in the flow and in kind of a truthful place in how I am talking to him about the story he's telling, and both knowing where he's going, but then listening to the characters, all this stuff. To answer your question, I would come at a story half of like me and like my experiences, my inspirations, my struggles. There were scripts that I wrote from an element of the character or something in the plot, and combined with the character was like a personal trauma or something that really bothered me, or something that was connected to something personal.
Yeah.
But then I would put it through the commercial meat grinder thing. So this goes back to Stephen Pressfield's chapter on being a hack. I would ignore the truth of what I wanted to do because it wasn't commercial or it wouldn't work for the market. So I would try to wedge these deeply personal stories into this commercial context.
How can I repackage this
and it would make it a hollow, vapid, impure thing that, you know, ultimately wouldn't sell. And I would have some friends and colleagues read it, and there would always be this feeling of like, there's something really here.
Now, do you think,
but it's wrong?
do you think you've come to that realization more recently?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
All of this exploration, everything from our podcast to reading The War of Art to reading Rick Rubin's book, to listening to different podcasts, interviews, to hearing Casey Neistat talk about his approach to the work that he's done, other photographers, all of that, you start to go, I remember feeling that, the good thing. Mm-hmm. And then I put it through the commercial meat grinder because I had $115,000 in student loan debt and felt like I had a ticking clock with all this pressure to get to a place of some kind of financial security. And I'm not talking about opulence. I'm talking about I can pay $1,200 a month for rent. I can pay my $350 car payment. I can pay my $800 minimum payment for my student loans, like that. And then, you know, extra money to have a life and, you know, travel a little bit, save for retirement, whatever. And that pressure made me think that I had to sell something.
Yeah. And
so every idea I would have, I would put through that commercial processing, that formulaic processing, the Blake Snyder. Well, this isn't quite like Blake Snyder. I got to have my act break at this page, and I got to have the midpoint. This isn't really like a Dark Night of the Soul moment, so you know, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and you would forfeit.
It's so interesting, though. Yeah, it's like, look, man, everything is, in my opinion, everything is like a realization process.
Yeah.
Everything is just you do something, and you evaluate it, and you make, you know, you adapt to that new perspective. And so I think the fact that you are looking at that old work and being like, you know, you've kind of diagnosed it. Yeah. It's like me looking at myself and being like, yeah, dude, I don't fucking know how to get anywhere.
Yeah.
This is not good. Maybe I need to, you know, I could have just continued to use GPS and never acknowledged it. Yep. And this is a terrible metaphor. Yeah. Like, I get it. This is just the thing that popped into my head of like, you know, losing, and it all goes back to the losing our ability for language or losing our ability to communicate, things like that. But yeah, I mean, you've realized that there was, you know, it's now it's like, okay, what comes from that realization? Like, is there still an interest to create work in that? What does the next screenplay look like? Where does that come from? Yeah.
And if there is, you know, and I don't think that screenwriting is done, but I think screenwriting as it was happening in the past is done. Yeah. And there are a couple scripts that ultimately have more of the personal element to them, and those I think I am not opposed to revisiting. And this sounds crazy. I wrote this horror script about a husband and wife that get stuck on an airplane on a runway in a snowstorm. This was like based on true events in a couple airports where people were stuck on a plane for like 8 hours on a runway. And I was struggling with all these control issues, like wanting in a situation like that, like being fixated on, well, what can I do to get control of this? Like, how do I will myself either off this plane, even though literally they will not let you off?
Or where do you search for that release valve? Is that like, does that, this might have not been the script, I haven't read this, but in my head goes like, so then do you start turning to something that you can try to control, which would be like your the husband controlling the wife, or
so you're just
you're searching for like this illusion of control.
And I wanted to create this sort of perfect really storm toxic, of circumstances where this person was going to have to surrender ultimately and stop trying to control everything and learn something new about themselves and change. But some horrific things were going to have to happen, whether it was the female character that was grappling with this. her relationship with her husband, the other passengers on the plane, all of that stuff. And I did like that it was in this umbrella of what felt like a sort of traditional horror movie. But a lot of people who read it went, you know what, the horror stuff, because the extra element is that this is based on a true thing as well. The runway was built over a cemetery, and that actually happened in Chicago. They demolished a cemetery and built the runway over it, so it's poltergeist on a plane. A lot of people were like, it's kind of cool that the runway was and that's what you did back then, right? You would be like, well, how do it's Die Hard in an elevator.
I know.
You know what I mean?
That's my favorite joke.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
it's like,
It's
all right, you
poltergeist
got
on a
this,
plane.
but
Yeah, right. Exactly, absolutely. So some of the people that read it were like, I really love this stuff that the character da-da-da. It's like, I don't think you need the...
yeah, dude, you need to rewrite that as like a
Right.
Cassavetes
Yeah,
film.
like,
Like,
it-
just give me a straight,
Yeah. And
straight-laced emotional drama.
And so they would tell me that. They're like, you really have something with this character and what she's going through stuck on this plane, especially because we know it's based on stuff
Yeah.
that really happened. It's not far-fetched. So, and I would just be like, I can't do that because that's not going to make me any money.
Yeah.
And
No,
back then, I
honestly,
would
dude,
just reject all that.
you had me dialed
Yeah.
in. I'm like, damn, I
Yeah,
need to
good
read
pitch.
this. Yeah,
I know.
good. And then you said it was built on a cemetery. I was
Right.
like, fuck,
Yeah,
dude.
right, yeah. And I think that's what happened when people read the script, because it wasn't until like 45 minutes in, an hour in, kind
and
of
then
like
you
Jaws,
see it and you're just like, fuck.
and they're
okay.
like, I was really enjoying.
Yeah, I
all
was
of
enjoying this, and then you just
and then like, oh, now there's like ghosts and it's a
Yeah.
runway cemetery. Like this is a little too much, buddy.
Yeah.
Because what the potential for what you could have had here was.
it's
I was
literally
really
like
feeling
you've
it.
got this beautiful movie, and you're like, wow, I'm actually feeling some stuff.
Right.
Oh, this is good. Ooh.
Yeah.
That's a good character.
Right.
Brought to you by Bose.
Yeah, right, I know.
Boeing. The
Yep.
Yeah, it's like, I'm sure glad we decided to take this Boeing flight.
Right.
American Airlines,
That's
they're going to
right.
give us 2 free tickets after this.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny, though. Yeah.
So-
I'd love to see that revisited. And
Yeah. And that's what I mean. I think I would have these embers of like something really meaningful and personal and something that I want to explore, questions I have about what we do and human condition, all that stuff. And then I would wrap it in this super commercial formulaic thing, and it would just fall fat. Poltergeist on a plane.
This is the podcast.
Some exec that was like, yeah, poltergeist on a plane.
Yeah, dude. Oh, that's good. That's good.
The thing that got me about it was, though, it was this mashup of true things. There were so many news articles about planes that would get stuck on the runway in a snowstorm for 7 hours. And then, this runway in Chicago that was built over a old Catholic cemetery.
See, but like you could totally keep that in there. Just like you make the ghost metaphor, like play
Yeah,
with ontology
absolutely.
now.
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
You've got such a much. You've got a
100%.
broad, like
Exactly.
maybe his control thing comes from some like specter of
Yeah.
his.
Well, and it's there's obviously strong connections to The Shining, and my take was
see, but
more
like
about
Shining is so. Like we talked about this in the
Yeah.
last one, but that's why it's so good. Is because there's never just like a fuck. He's doing the ghost thing.
exactly
And then they did the TV version.
Yeah.
And it was like everybody's just like,
right, truer to the novel, but not as good.
great, got it.
Yeah.
Ghost, haunted,
Yeah.
cool, whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
So
we
we'll
gotta
see.
we gotta come up with the it's what I don't know what the podcast is. But we're gonna come up with a nice change the bio too. Instead
do-
of conversations about
Yeah.
whatever conversation about whatever the bio is, I forget. Yeah, it's like we just need the poltergeist on a plane
Right.
equivalent. That's where we could
we'll
use some
save that.
comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could use some suggestions.
And then maybe we do an episode where I pitch all my old screenplays and you guys tell me which ones are dog shit, don't even bother, and then which ones are worth revisiting.
Oh, give me be like, today's the screenplay pitch episode. And I'm gonna dress up like a studio exec,
Right.
and we're just gonna do the bit.
Yeah.
Commit to it.
And then you can do what happened when you presented your photos at the gallery. You
Yeah.
can do that to me
Yeah.
like, I see what you're doing here.
I see what you're doing here. All right, next.
And then you like push like
All right, you want to
Yeah.
know? You want a good script?
yeah,
Look,
yeah. Yes, the sequel to Transformers.
You know how much money this made? You know how much money this fucking movie made?
They're robots, but they can turn into stuff.
You get it? Do you get
No.
it?
Do you understand?
Do you understand? It looks like it's going over your head.
The streets are empty. Little inside joke there. The streets are empty.
It's New York City.
Listen to me.
But
this
it's
is New
empty.
York City in 2020, but it's empty.
It had been a golden afternoon, and I remember having the familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the summer.